I got divorced after 14 years of marriage, and I had 2 kids, and I got out into the dating scene thinking, here I am, I'm an adult with 2 kids, and I should be able to, you know, just thrive in relationships, right? Because why not? I mean, relationships are easy. We have them all the time. And I found that it was much harder than that, you know, and that I wasn't, initially it was all fun and games. And then a little while after, I wasn't landing any kind of relationship that I wanted. And not only was I not landing it, but I was also finding myself like super duper attached to people that didn't deserve it, you know?
So you got introduced to dating apps towards the tail end of your marriage.
Yeah. At the end of it. Yeah. And that was crazy, you know, because I'd never seen it, right? 14 years I was married.
What is this candy store of people, of humans?
No, I went through a similar experience, actually.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Introspect Room.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for showing up again.
Thank you for showing up.
One more again.
We opened the door for you so you can walk in one more time. My name is Jeff Damisse.
And I am Michaelangelo Garland.
And this is the Introspect Room. Welcome back. We have a very special guest with us today.
Very special guest.
Very
prolific.
The prolific.
The amazing.
The amazing.
The one and only.
But before we get into our guest, how you doing, man? How was your weekend?
I am doing well, man. I'm doing very well. Probably better than you're doing at this point. I would assume after your nomadic experience this week, right?
All right, so let's explore. So basically, this past week, right, I decided to do an experiment. So I bought my home as an investment home with the intent of renting it out at some point, and basically, I rented it out temporarily to a family for Airbnb for like a whole week straight, so I can explore different hotels throughout NYC. And basically, I felt homeless for the last 7 days.
Explore hotels. That was your week's goal. I like that.
My week's goal. I wanted to be like a low key
in the Bronx.
No, it was not really in the Bronx, but like basically, I wanted to be like a hotel vlogger for like a week.
You were a Yelp master this week.
Exactly. But you know what? The money's good, so I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. So
sounds it. So I mean, the tenants. It looks like they were good to the space this time too. Super clean in here.
They probably left some condoms somewhere. Anyway, that's not the point.
That's a whole other story. I hope you locked your bedroom.
My bedrooms are off limit. They can only use the backyard. That's it.
It looks like they didn't use it at all. So,
so our guest for today, is a dating coach, love coach, in all sorts of ways.
All around great person.
Right? All around entrepreneur. And she's going to help us with our love life. Because apparently mine needs work. I've heard.
Oh, yeah. This is going to be a super, super fun conversation. I have a lot of questions for you today, actually, about...
For who? For me?
Well, no, for our guests.
Okay.
About,
I was like, yeah, leave me out of it.
Love styles.
Leave me out of
approaches.
All right? Because I don't want to... I feel like I put myself on blast on previous episodes. I'm going to keep my mouth shut this time. I'm going to be very...
Oh, nah. We're diving into it
Don't
today.
dig into me. All right? There's nothing to know. I'm a very boring individual. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce our guests for this evening or morning, whatever time you're listening to this conversation.
For sure. Let her introduce herself. I think she can introduce herself.
She can introduce herself, but as the the routine for the show is, ladies and gentlemen, welcome Flora.
Flora, how are you?
Am I on? Can I talk? I feel like I'm supposed to jump out of a hat and do a dance.
With that sound effect, I feel like you're right. But Flora, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, please.
Hi, guys. Nice to be here, and thank you for having me. I am Flora Ong. I'm a dating and relationship coach. I focus on attachment styles as a way of helping people to understand their subconscious.
Right on.
Okay.
And if you guys know anything about your subconscious or our subconscious, it runs about 90 to 95% of all the decisions and actions and behaviors that we take and make. So it's kind of really important to get to know.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I do. And yeah.
So you're a love coach, relationship coach, but you focus on the science behind it.
I focus on the psychology,
right.
and kind of the neuroscience, behind why we make the decisions we make. And while it starts out from the like relationship love realm, it kind of bleeds into every part of your life, because your subconscious is your subconscious. It doesn't just affect your love life.
Right. And how did you kind of get into this space? What brought you to wanting to be a love coach and knower of all things that have to do with relationships?
Yeah. How did you get to
have you guys have you guys heard that quote, make your mess your message?
Have
you ever heard that?
I've never heard that. What is that?
Yeah. I mean, basically I was a mess, like a complete mess in my love life. I got divorced after 14 years of marriage, and I had 2 kids, and I got out into the dating scene thinking, here I am, I'm an adult with 2 kids, and I should be able to, just thrive in relationships, right? Because why not? I mean, relationships are easy. We have them all the time. And I found that it was much harder than that, and that I wasn't, initially it was all fun and games. And then a little while after, I wasn't landing any kind of relationship that I wanted. And not only was I not landing it, but I was also finding myself like super duper attached to people that didn't deserve it, that would give me very minimal amounts of attention. And I would, it would take me a year or 2 years. It took me like a year or 2 years to get over, any given guy that I like felt this way about. And he had forgotten about me a long time ago.
Really?
And yeah.
And these are men that you were dating for a short period of time or a long period of time?
Like casual. I mean, one of them was a long thing, but it was a very toxic relationship. Another couple of them were super casual. Nothing, no like in a normal world, there would have been no attachment, necessary in those situations. But I found myself getting really deeply attached to people, that weren't showing me enough attention and didn't deserve it.
And these are people that you dated right after your divorce, right? Like, and how much time did you give yourself before you jumped like back into the dating scene after the divorce?
Sure. Like, what the funny thing about divorces, and most divorced people understand this, and I think a lot of us go through the same cycle, but your marriage is over a long time before it actually ends, So within the marriage, things are kind of dead for a long time. And then, especially when you have kids and circumstances that don't allow you to just like separate easily, you spend a lot of time separated within the marriage. That's not to say that you don't need some time afterwards to let the transition settle in, which I didn't recognize, right? I just wanted to jump
you
right
just
into
jumped
like
into the pool.
Started going.
The cesspool of dating.
Let's move on to the next thing.
Of dating apps. So not just dating, like whoever was around, but like
so you got
apps.
introduced to dating apps towards the tail end of your marriage.
Yeah, at the end of it, and that was crazy, because I'd never seen it. Right, 14 years I was married.
What is this candy store of people, of humans?
No, I went through a similar experience actually when I broke up with a person who was quite serious to me, and I think we talked about her on our last episode. You got me to open up about that a little bit.
Shed some light on that, man. Shed some light on that.
No, I mean I was in a relationship for like 2 to 3 years with this person who, when I transitioned into the relationship, the whole dating app culture was not a thing at the time. So when I got out of the relationship, it's like you said, it's just it's kind of a shell shock. Like, wait a minute, there's a lot of options here for limited amount of effort. So those returns are never going to be great.
I can just do this with my finger and people will show up to my bedroom. I mean, my house. I mean, wait, what?
I mean, you said that. I didn't. Okay.
So how does that transition from your love experience as a married individual who got divorced into a dating relationship coach who's focused on attachment stuff? How does one pivot from that to this?
So as I was going through this experience and like getting very attached and, you know, not without reciprocation, I, after like the fifth time it happened, I started to feel like I was a little crazy and like there was something wrong with me, you know?
Oh, okay.
And I started searching to figure out what is wrong with me. And by this point, I was already writing a book about my experiences because a lot of them were really fun and funny, you know, being on the dating apps and just kind of like out there
Until it
again
stopped
for the
being
first
funny.
time.
It's always fun and funny in the beginning.
You're like, I'm laughing,
The
but I'm
first 3
crying at the
weeks.
same time.
That's exactly.
Why am
that's
I
first 3
crying?
weeks.
Why am I smiling with tears?
What is
very
ghosting?
true.
Like this whole, there's all these new terms. It's like, yeah.
So go on.
So I was writing a book and trying to like clarify this all for myself. I think it was just really like a big journal, you know, of
Right.
like trying to understand what was happening. And then I read the book Attached.
Ooh.
And you know,
I have
this
that
is by
book.
far, you know, did you? Oh, you read it. You told me you read it. Yeah, this is by far, you know, the like premier book on this. And the first book, I think, on relating attachment theory to adult love relationships. And it was like, I don't know, it was just like I was seen for the first time, you know.
By whom?
Because
By
you know,
yourself?
you talk by like somebody, you know, because you talk to your friends about it. And after this 15th time of telling your friends, well, like, oh my God, I love him. I love him. I love him. Why isn't he calling me? You know, like they're like, shut up. Okay, get a life and go do something with yourself.
That's what your friends.
You know?
That's what your friend said.
At some point, I mean, at first, you know, they're understanding, and then at some point, they're like, enough already, enough. You know, pick yourself up, like do something with yourself. You know, and you can only talk so much, and then also feel so bad about it. But reading this book, it clarified why I had these strong feelings. And by that point, you know, it was naturally making sense to me, right? Like I had realized that it was an insert any guy here situation, right?
Damn.
Where it was like the feeling was the same, but the person was different. But the feeling didn't change. You know, it was like this feeling of longing, this feeling of like I was missing something, this feeling like something was empty. But and then it was just an insert any guy here kind of situation. And then when I read the book, it kind of clarified why. Why all of this?
Was this one of those cliche moments where like I hear a lot now where you didn't heal from your last relationship? Or is that
it's not
why the air
I didn't heal
quotes?
from my last
Why the air quotes on that? Like that's a real thing.
No, I hear you, but sometimes people default to that as being the reason for everything. Right. Anytime you do something wrong,
one day you'll experience it.
Who says I haven't? Who says I haven't? I've dealt with that before. I'm just saying, like sometimes I've heard people say, you know, whatever mistake you did is because you didn't heal from your last relationship. When in reality, it could be a multitude of things, right? But
oftentimes it could be because of
depends
the
on the
traumas you haven't healed from.
Depends on the person, because somebody could go through therapy, somebody could have a lifelong set of experiences, but make the same mistakes because they're just arrogant or they don't believe in change, right? But others, it is, because they didn't heal from a relationship. But I don't know if that was necessarily her experience or she inherently didn't heal from something even before that. From like maybe how she was raised as a kid.
That's a great point.
Well, that's really what it is. I mean, it's all. I want to say two things to what you said. Yes, it's related to childhood trauma, or my issues were related to childhood trauma. And we can talk about the word trauma in a second. But also I want to say to what you just said, it's what you're talking about when people make mistakes or do nasty things, let's say to a partner, you know, that doesn't say nasty things or act in a way that isn't great. It really is kind of coming from a place that's an unhealed trauma in one way or another. And that is something that lives in their subconscious. Now, whether they recognize it or not is another conversation, but where it's coming from, there's not a shadow of doubt that it's coming from some place that they're not willing to look at.
So you said after reading the book, you feel like you were finally seen or heard, right?
Yeah.
So were you finally seen or heard by you as well, not just the person who
Well,
wrote the book?
the two things that really came out of the book for me were that, one, it's okay to want a relationship. It's the most natural human condition on the planet, right? To want to be connected, to want to be accepted, to want to find love.
Right.
And that was, with this, with the self-love movement that is going on, and with the Instagram memes, love yourself, and you should not need anyone, and all this kinds of stuff. That's where my head was, right? Because I was doing all this self-development work, and I was like, yeah, I have to get to the place where I don't need anyone. I got to get to the place where I don't need anyone. And, and I was saying that I don't need anyone and I'm okay on my own. But inside it was a complete lie. I was like desperate for love and desperately wanting someone, you know?
You know what I call that?
I call that avoidant.
No, I call that hot girl summer. Go on. That's what those are the terms I hear now. Go ahead.
No, and I was joking, but not really, because I did a little bit of like reading prior to us connecting today. Would that be more in line with the avoidant style?
Well, let's get people familiar.
Okay, awesome. Anxious avoidant.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'd like you to give the audience an idea of what that book is that you read, and summarize some of the categories that they emphasize that you resonate with, as well as the ones that resonate with other categories.
Okay. All right. So there's only 4 attachment styles. It's not that big of a category, but your attachment style basically relates to how you were raised, and mostly how you were emotionally attuned to. Like, did your parents help you did they encourage your emotions? Did they allow you to express your emotions? Did they help you repair your emotions? Right. And it has nothing to do, this trauma that I'm talking about, it's not this like big trauma that, necessarily, but it is every time that they didn't, let's say, allow you to feel excited, maybe they shut you down. They're like, oh, you're making too much noise, be quiet, kind of thing. Every time that happens, and when it happens repetitively as a child, you think, oh, that's a bad, I can't do that. That's bad. That means that there's something wrong with me. I need to stop that. And you pull that into your subconscious, and that becomes like a limiting belief, and also affects your attachment style, right? So when your parents were able to do all that stuff in a really healthy way, you end up with a secure attachment style. And what that means as an adult is that you know how to express your emotions. You are not afraid of conflict in relationship, because it gets resolved, right? Because your parents taught you, like, oh, you have emotional issues. We'll talk about it. We'll figure it out. So, and as an adult, you're secure and you're okay in relationships. They're kind of, you're neutral in terms of also your nervous system, right? And that's a really important side of this, right? So the next attachment style, in no particular order, is anxious attachment, which is my primary attachment. And so the way that develops is when there's inconsistent emotional attunement from childhood. So in my case, my parents were immigrants. So when they were around, they were great. They were loving. They, did all the things, but they weren't around a lot, right? Because they were working all the time, and I got shuffled around, especially when I was very young, to my grandparents' house. And what that causes in a child is kind of this, you never know when they're going to be back. And so you're constantly like waiting, and there's like this desperation that happens, and this not knowing of like, when will that be back? Will it come back? And so that's why you find that adults with anxious attachment tend to be kind of seemingly needy, right? And they want a lot of attention, or they need a lot of attention, and they like a lot of phone calls, or they like a lot of texts, and they like a lot of communication, and they like a lot of like time spent together, because they're always worried at their core. They have an abandonment wound, right? And they have essentially a fear of abandonment. So when their partner isn't present for any length of time, that makes them uncomfortable, whatever that time is. They kind of they go into their fight or flight mode in their nervous system, right? So anxious, they go into anxiety. Basically, they start to get anxious about whether that person will return.
You know what that makes me wonder. I apologize for interrupting you, but like
No.
you said that you were dropped off at your grandparents, right? And that inherently made you anxious about whether your parents were coming back, which bled into how you view relationships moving forward, right? In your long-term adulthood.
Right.
But I tend to wonder, does that same effect happen when we drop kids off at babysitters or, daycare? Like,
well,
that's actually a really good.
It goes.
Question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, but it depends on the kid, and it goes two ways, right? So I just talked about anxious attachment. The other big attachment style is the avoidant attachment style, which happens when your parents are mostly neglectful. So let's say that same thing happens, right? They are dropping you off at the babysitter or the grandparent or whatever, but when they're with you, they don't really pay a lot of attention to you. Or when they do pay attention to you, it's a lot of
iPads.
Oh, not now. Oh, yeah, I'm busy. Oh, here's the iPad. Or, I don't have the emotional capacity to relate with you because you're little. Sometimes that happens too, right? Like parents aren't really great with kids, and they don't know how to relate.
Especially when they're on their third or fourth kid. The last kid's get the least,
the younger,
you know what I mean?
Kid does definitely.
Yeah, it's totally true. And so that creates an avoidant attachment style where from a very, very young age, the kid completely shuts down their whole emotional center, right? And instead of needing something from another person, even their caretaker, they start to bond with like either things or hobbies or passions like into adulthood. And they get their validation through things, passions, hobbies, rather than other people. Whereas the anxious person validates through other people. The avoidant person validates through, those other kinds of
like
things.
external.
One thing I'm noticing just in like obviously doing some research and also just listening to you now, parenting is like super instrumental in like everything that happens to a kid's life, and really not just parenting, from a distance. You have to really be like super thoughtful in everything that you do. I'm assuming that you knowing all this and having all this information, you're probably putting a lot into like how you're kind of rearing your own kids.
Now I got this information a little late.
Right.
I want to get into the last of the attachment styles. And I want to dig into them in more detail. So you mentioned the secure, you mentioned the anxious, and you also mentioned the avoidant.
Yeah.
What's the fourth?
The fourth one, and it's like the smallest percentage of the population, although a lot of people relate to it the most, it is when you're truly disorganized. Okay, it's the name of the fourth. When you're truly disorganized, it really comes from a childhood where there was a lot of chaos and more than likely some sort of actual abuse, where it was sexual, mental, emotional, physical, like real stuff. And how that translates is that you're somebody who really wants love in your life, like desperately, but you're also afraid of it because of how you were raised, right? So you can imagine that if you were abused, like the same people that loved you also hurt you.
Right.
So as an adult, you have a really hard time kind of managing the love relationship because you're always waiting to get hurt from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've met people
and
like
so
that.
And so you go through, you actually have both sides. You have anxious and avoidant. Sometimes this style is also called anxious avoidant because, you really want the love. And so you'll go after it like really desperately. But then when somebody comes close to you, go into avoidance and you push away.
Yeah, I've met people like that. Because like people who've been like, I've dated in the past when I was younger, people who were like legitimately abandoned and abused, right?
Yeah.
Like talking to like foster kids, like people who grew up in that environment, people who whose parents were drug abusers, physical abusers, things of that nature. And you can really see that level of disorganized emotional
trauma. Not
just emotional trauma, but just emotional IQ, right? It's very disorganized, and it's very relatable to those experiences in the past. And as I got older, I started to realize, at least appreciate, the fact that I didn't have to go through that, and why I might think the way I think and why other people think the way they think. But the fact that you said that is fascinating. So my question to you is, which kind of goes along with Michelangelo's question earlier, you felt like you were abandoned as a child when you were being dropped off by...
You don't think of things that way as a kid, right? Like, you don't have that thought process, and you don't have a sense of nuance when you're a kid. And that's why these things sit inside you the way that they do, because all you know is, I'm getting dropped off. Mommy doesn't want me, right? And my mom was going to work. She was trying to feed me. She was trying to pay for the house, right? It was all in the spirit of loving me, right? It was all for me, essentially, and my sister and our family. But you don't understand that as a kid, all you think is, I'm not good enough for mommy to stay right now.
Damn.
And
because it comes from the place of need, right? Like, I need my mom right now, and if she's not here when I need her, your brain automatically goes to the worst possible.
Kids don't understand taxes, 401ks, mortgages. They don't.
There's no nuance. It's all black and white when you're a kid. It's all very basic information.
I was hanging out with one of my best friends yesterday, and they have 2 kids, right? One is a newborn, and the other one's almost 2. And the one that's almost 2, how she was seeking attention from the parents when the parents were one, clearly very busy with the other one. And 2, just trying to have a conversation with me. The kid didn't even care. The kid was like, I want a hug now. I don't care what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing. As a matter of fact, you shouldn't be doing anything other than what I want right now.
And that actually begs a really, really important question too. For parents out there that are listening, and probably feeling a lot more pressure than they were before.
Yeah.
What do you suggest parents do to ensure that the kids are getting enough of the attention they need to develop into what at least appears to be the I don't want to say the best attachment style, but having a secure attachment style is, I would assume, is where the goal is per se. And that's just on my understanding. What should parents do to ensure that, because if you give them too much, you could also be hurting them, right?
Yeah.
So what's
the avoidance style sometimes stems from enmeshment, where the parent is overly attentive to the kid, and the kid's leave me the hell alone. This is too much. Yeah. Sometimes it goes the opposite way.
Being a parent is hard, man. I'm going to clap for you, actually, because and all the parents out there, because that.
Wait, hold on, time out.
You can mess it up one way, or you can mess it up the other way.
So if you give your kid too much attention.
Well, like a helicopter parent, those parents that are wiping their kids' asses till they're 9. You know what I mean? There's
car seat at 11.
Car seat at 11.
Those kids.
High chair at 12.
Right.
And cutting the food.
At Apple. Breastfeeding at 16. That's a little bit of a problem. I feel like I gotta search those videos, because there's probably kids out there who are overly grown being baby crazy. Wait, so if you give your kid too much attention, you're likely going to bring them into the avoidant attachment style, which means they're gonna want to reject a lot of people.
Well, they're going to get overwhelmed by love and attention, right? They're going to get anytime somebody comes towards them with a lot of affection, they're going to be whoa, this is too, this reminds me of this thing that was overwhelming as a kid, So that happens too. And just to answer your question, Michaelangelo, I heard, and I don't know because I haven't researched this from the kid side, right? I know a lot about the adult manifestations of this, but from the kids side, I've heard that you only have to be properly attuned at least 30% of the time.
What does that mean?
Okay.
That means that if you properly attune with your child 30% of the time, they should end up with a secure attachment style.
How does one count 30%? When you're a parent, What's 30%?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to quantify that. Like you can't really give a guide on that because you need to see like what like parts of a person's life are like pulling their attention, right?
Someone needs to create an app for that. Put it on Apple Watch. I'm at 23% parenting. That would be. Hey. I need to get to 30 because Catherine down the street, she's already at 32.
And clearly we're joking about it, but like I'm sure you can feel it, right? Like you as a parent, you know if you're giving like way too much attention to your kid or not enough, right? You want to be in that middle section.
I don't know. She's a parent, and in my mind, you said that you just learned this stuff now, so you don't even know how you were balancing it before. I imagine.
No, I mean, I can tell. I know a lot of times where I am an entrepreneur, right? Like, and I do get very busy because not only do I have a full-time job, but I also do this on the side. My full-time job is matchmaker, which you guys know, but for the audience, I'm also a matchmaker. So my life is inundated with this, with all of this, with dating overall. But I say this only to say that I'm very busy with work all the time, and there's a lot of times that my kids kind of could use attention, need attention, but they're on the iPad, and I have a lot of guilt over that. There's like this constant level of guilt, not only because there just is because you have kids and, but because now I know this on top of it. So, I do have to like stop sometimes and just be like, all right, let's build that Lego set. We built a Lego set yesterday.
How old are your kids?
12 and 7.
12 and 7. So you just recently got attuned to this attachment style life.
Within how many years?
How long ago?
Not early enough in their lives because this really sets up before the age of 3, by the way. But I don't know, 3 years ago, and it's really only hit me on the parenting. Well, no. I've known about this for 5 or 6 years now. It's only hit me on the parenting level about 3 years ago.
Okay. So 3 years ago, one of your kids was 4 and the other one was 9, right? Yeah. So with that said, do you know what your kids' attachment styles are going to be given how you parented them prior to your knowledge of this
That actually ties to one of the questions I had for you. Like when you meet people and talk about your kids first, but when you meet people, can you kind of tell?
I can tell you that my daughter is anxiously attached without a doubt. Like I can't walk out of the car on, as the driver and she's on the other side. She's screaming my name before, I can meet her in the front of the car. She's worried whether I'm there or not. Like when I leave the house, like she can't dial. I mean, she can now dial a phone, but like for a long time, she couldn't dial a phone. And her mantra is, "Mommy, make sure your ringer's on." Like, as though she was going to call me. Like she can't even call me, but she knows that if I have my phone, she can reach me somehow.
This is the 7-year-old?
No, this is the 7-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay,
the older one, he's got issues, but I think he might be secure.
Well, he's also the oldest, so I think that plays into it a bit.
Well, I mean, he remembers the divorce. My daughter does not remember that whole period of life of, us getting divorced.
But how does that make him more secure?
For a lot of that. He's very emotional. I don't have an answer as to what his attachment style is. I can tell you he's very emotionally mature. And anybody who meets him says that about him and knows that about him. Like it's very obvious.
Is it a hormonal thing?
Hormonal?
Meaning like he's
because he's
12.
No. It's a personality.
No, he's
I don't know when these kids get their hormones kicking in. He's probably got pimples out the wazoo. Right. I have no idea.
But I'm assuming you recognize these things about his personality before he was 12, before he was prepubescent.
No, this has nothing to do with his.
It's a personality trait.
This time in his life, it is a personality trait. He's very emotionally aware.
So your kids have, one is anxious, clearly. One is secure in your perception.
Unclear.
Unclear.
Still
sure.
unclear.
So let's talk about the anxious one. Right? What is it about how you parented that person that contributed to that anxious attachment style?
I don't really know. I have thought about it, but I really think it has to do a lot with the shifting from house to house. Because she grew up where we were pretty much, we were two by the time, she was two by the time we were divorced. And so she doesn't have a memory of like, us fighting or any of the stuff that my son has. She
at least not consciously, right?
Yeah, not consciously. And
impacts you
I don't,
subconsciously.
True. And I don't know how much she was, there for, but yeah, I think the shifting from house to house kind of had that effect on her. If I had to guess.
The more you talk about this,
mm-hmm.
it's starting to shed a lot of light about the dynamics.
What's wrong with you?
Okay, first of all, yes, but no, that's not the point. No, like there's a different personality between all the siblings in my family unit.
That's a whole other conversation too. Like birth order and that whole thing.
Yeah.
That's like one of my favorite topics, actually.
But beyond that, my parents got divorced. Okay. And through different stages of our lives as kids.
Right.
So what I experience is different from what the younger, sibling experience.
Right.
Right. And I also have a half sibling who didn't necessarily grow up with us.
Right.
And I would imagine that his experience contributed to how he is. And I know how he is in relationships. And as I'm thinking, I'm just like, that makes a lot of sense. Right? How I am, right? Since I was like, I'm the second oldest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I know the youngest, how that person is in relationships and in their thought process, and the one who didn't grow up in the household, right? And as you're talking, it's just starting to click. Wow, yeah, my brain's on fire right now. So, yeah.
So
a lot of things make sense. We can process that later, Jeff.
Definitely.
I'm here for you.
There we go. We're all here for you, bro.
First of all,
this is a support network here. But I had another question for you, Flora, because I think you're definitely like shedding a lot of light. Even Jeff his brain's opening up here about how important it is to kind of like understand what your attachment style is. Like that's what I'm taking away from it. It's like super important to figure this out. I'm curious, and I'd kind of touched on this or mentioned it like, passively before.
Mm-hmm. Is
there a hierarchy, right? Because you mentioned that like 50% of people they fall into the, secure attachment style, but I would assume that's where everybody wants to get. I said that before earlier, but I want to ask you directly, is there a hierarchy? Do people like go in between different attachment styles? How does it kind of work?
So yes, ideally secure is a great place to be, right? Because your nervous system isn't affected by relationship necessarily. That's not to say we don't all get angry, upset, sad, whatever. But yes, secure is the goal. And on the other side of it, I've heard the insecure attachment styles, to me, it's like a spectrum, right? And one is here, the anxious is here, the avoidant is here, and then the disorganized jumps this way and that way. There's not one better or worse. I'm anxious sometimes. A lot of times I wish I was more avoidant. I've heard avoidant people telling me, oh, it's like the worst to be avoidant. I wish I was, more anxious. So there's no better or worse. It's just, there's no hierarchy within the insecure attachment styles, in my opinion, Okay. And, I have a really great friend that like pointed out that, having an insecure attachment style, while it can be difficult when you don't understand it, once you do understand it, there's a lot of stuff that comes along with it that is really positive,
like what?
Like, for example, hypervigilance, right? You become super hyper vigilant of your partner, as an anxious and the disorganized has this as well, right? So you're very attuned to other people's like a
you're
side
an empath.
eye.
You're an empath.
Well, yeah, you can associate it with that. It's not exactly that, but yes, you can make that connection. but like, yeah, you can like see like the wrong like look on somebody, you know, when somebody's not being honest. You have like a very clear understanding. Like I've had guys, like for example, in the dating sphere, right? Like let's get back to that like very basic superficial thing where you know, I've had a guy like be attentive to me, then slightly pull away, and immediately I'm like, that's it, he's seeing somebody else.
Damn.
You
Wow.
know? Yeah.
To the worst.
And
possible.
I knew.
You love
know?
her. What? I was talking to my
like,
mom.
The memes of like what she thinks you're out doing, you're just out with
What
your
you're
friends,
actually
like,
doing.
sword fighting. That's what he. Yeah. No, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's fine. But it's there's two sides of that, right? So on one side, you can be really, really, what's the word? Like you're almost like not an empath. You got that word stuck in my head. You're almost like psychic to some degree,
Intuitive.
right? Because you're so tuned.
But you're hypersensitive. You're just hypersensitive.
Yeah, you're hypersensitive. But sometimes it's, so the other part of this like more subconscious conversation is that you have to watch your stories, right? So
Instagram
Not
stories?
Instagram stories.
Oh.
Everyone.
All right.
You
What? I gotta watch my stories.
go ahead.
you got to watch the stories that you're making up around this stuff, right? Because if you were raised in an environment where people cheat all the time, right?
Mhm.
Your first go-to from somebody pulling away a little bit will be, oh, I'm sure he's cheating, you know?
Mm.
But if that's not your story, it's not the way that you grew up, you might understand that it's a natural, now I understand it's a natural part of relationship where somebody pulls away a little bit, right? People kind of need space to come back to relationship.
Right.
And so it's your story can also really hurt the relationship a lot and your dating experience a lot, because when you're all in your head about whatever you think is going on doesn't actually mean that that's what is really going on. You know?
I see.
So when you're anxious, right? And I kind of read this in the book too. It's like people who are super anxious, they pay attention to the nuances that most people don't. I don't want to say most, but the people who aren't anxious don't pay attention to. So like people who are anxious, I heard, can recognize facial expression changes in someone.
Yeah.
They're naturally suspicious, right?
Yeah, like I wouldn't call it suspicious.
Yeah.
They're just naturally just paying attention to certain cues that are so subtle. Like if I go from just like a neutral face to like a little concerned, someone who is hyper anxious will notice that change versus someone who's either secure or avoidant might not even pay attention to those details.
Which
Right.
you could argue is a good trait to have.
It
right?
depends.
It's
Well, that's
like,
my point. I mean, that's what I'm saying. When you take the story, when you do the subconscious work and understand the subconscious work and you remove the story, it is almost like a superpower because you do notice these things, right? And you can read people a little bit better and you can understand what is going on. Now, just because somebody's face gets concerned doesn't mean that something is wrong, or it doesn't mean that like the problem with the insecure attachment styles is they take everything to mean something about themselves.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I've been with people like that. It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah.
yeah, no.
They always think you're cheating. I'm like, I was sleeping, literally sleeping. Who is she? What? You need to be here every time. What? Anyway, we're not gonna talk about it.
That's for
going
another episode.
I'm going down a rabbit hole.
I had, Flora, another question. In your experiences, I know that you make or you ask your clients to take the test or the evaluation that kind of shows them what their attachment style is. Do you notice that, dependent upon your gender, you fall into one or the other categories more often, or?
I think it's typical that women tend to be more anxious, but there are plenty of anxious men out there, and men tend to be more avoidant. But again, there are plenty of avoidant women out there. So I don't have the stats on that, but that is I don't know, kinds of the breakdown on that side.
I see.
So now that kind of makes me wonder, right? You said all these things you learned about the psychology of human behavior through attachment styles, but like you're also on your own journey, right?
Yes.
And you probably evolved as a person from that journey, right? But I'm assuming you still have ways to go. Like there's no perfection here. But you're also giving advice to other people, right? Do you find at times that it's more difficult to take your own advice than it is to give other people?
Oh, isn't it always?
Well, I'm saying specific
questions that.
No. I'm saying specifically to someone who's so knowledgeable from the textbook point of how the human mind works when it comes to how you attach to other people. You're very attuned to it.
Still a human though.
But that's my question, right? Because she recognizes her anxiousness. Does she recognize it to the point where that sometimes overtakes her conscious understanding of herself?
So I have a great recent example, but what I want to say before that is that there's no amount of information you can know that will change your subconscious processing of your issues.
Exactly.
Okay.
So for example, like how many diets are there?
150,000? I don't know.
No, like 150,000. How much information is there about how to lose weight? Right. And then you still have people out there being like, I just can't lose weight. I don't know how. I don't know what to do. No, you know, you Google, you sit on the diet, stay on the diet, and then you'll lose the weight. Right. But why don't people stay on the diet? Right. Because it's not hunger most of the time. Right. It's some emotional need for fulfillment in one way or another.
Yeah, but are those same people acting out as personal trainers and dietitians?
In some instances.
Well,
yeah.
That's what I'm trying to understand. So imagine an out of shape personal trainer.
I see them all the time.
I'm not
going to say which gym.
But I see them as well. I see out of shape personal trainers training people who are in better shape than them. Don't know how.
And who are in fantastic shape, actually. I've seen that a few times, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like,
right. So this is the equivalent. This is the emotional equivalent.
Right.
Would you say that you are more knowledgeable about something that you coach other people on than you are in shape for yourself, or do you feel as though you're aligned with your knowledge and your self
equally?
Like
a lot of it is aligned, and then a lot of it, every time there's a new experience, it challenges my subconscious imprinting. Got it. So I'm in a new relationship. I'll share this. I'm in a new relationship, and because it's new, and because I'm still learning where the I don't know where things sit. My attachment stuff all came up. It all came up, and I knew it was coming, and I understood it, and I was able to speak about it, yet it still showed up. Right. And it doesn't stop the anxiety from happening.
Right.
It makes me aware of the anxiety. I know what it's about. I know what's happening. I know why it's happening, but it doesn't make me less nervous that I didn't hear from him for 3 days or whatever the situation was, at the time.
I'm so glad that you shared that too, because I'm sure that there's going to be tons of people who are listening who are reading all the books and like going to probably take your test, which we're going to share with them at the end, how they can do that. And like, you're still going to have to go through life situations, and what you are just accustomed to, right? It goes back to habit. Your habits kind of form you and shape you. So for you specifically, when you're going through a new relationship right now, and these things are still coming up, right? The things that are just core to who you are. What are you doing to like kind of like curb them now, right? Like how do you do that?
Well, I have my practices of understanding and knowing. I have my meditation practices. I have my exercising practices. I have things I can lean on. I know that like I need to, be focused on myself and my own purpose and my own things. And I still did the thing,
She
did
the thing. The thing was done. The thing.
I did the thing anyway,
Right.
And, I had to. There was no way it wasn't going to happen. There was just no way it wasn't going to happen. Because on some level, it's a part of who I am.
Right.
And you're going to love me the way I am, or you're not going to love me at all. You know what I mean?
So you're saying
and I'm not
that
saying,
like, going back to just when those things do come up, right? The things, the bag of things, when they come up, you go back to being introspective in a sense.
Yes.
All right.
Wait, so
go ahead.
So wait, so Michaelangelo asked this question: how well can you read other people's attachment style from just initial interaction? Because you also said
us, so let's go here.
That's
what do you think? Have you taken our test?
I mean, I've taken the test. I know what my attachment style is, but
you do.
I want to know how much she knows about my attachment style and your attachment style.
Yeah, don't tell her what it is. I want to see if because you know us well enough, I'd say. Can you guess what our attachment style is?
She knows way too much about me, though. I think
she already know.
She knows. She just knows way too much about my
talked about
habits.
Exactly, which is why she.
But the way I just want to say this like for the audience, because this isn't like a game you play kinds of thing. Or I mean, you can play it as long as you're not taking anything too seriously. But you only know somebody's attachment style after it's a pattern. So you won't know it just from meeting somebody, and you won't know it because they ghost you, and you won't know it because they do this one thing that's annoying or whatever.
Yeah.
You know it over a period of time, So if I were to guess, and this is a guess, Michaelangelo, I would say you're secure. And Jeff, we know already that you're secure, but you lean avoidant for sure. We know this.
Stop talking about me.
What are you?
Huh?
What did the test say?
From what I remember is I'm really secure, right? I'm really secure. But why are you chuckling?
I expected you to say that.
You expected me to say what?
That you're secure. We should have took the test live.
It's not what I'm saying.
Yeah, right?
Those were the results. But there's I'm secure with like because it's on a spectrum. I'm secure with a touch of avoidance. Not like
Got it.
It's not just like black or white. It's like there's a gradient of all. It's a quadrant.
Which I would actually think that it's not black or white for anyone, right?
It's not.
Yeah, you kind of.
And I think what's important to say too is that over a lifetime, given the different traumas we experience, like divorce sometimes causes people to change their, attachment style. You've been married for 10, 20 years and you've had a secure relationship, and maybe you were anxious before, and then you're secure in the relationship, then you get out of the relationship. Maybe you even become avoidant because, it's too, like, the pain of getting in another relationship is too much to bear kind of thing. So It does change given different life experiences.
So wait, with that said, like, do people find themselves more or less compatible with certain attachment styles? Like,
well, everybody's better with the securely attached person, because the securely attached person.
You were right. I am. When I took the test, it was.
That means I'm good with everyone.
I didn't even bother checking in because I knew. I didn't need to check. I just I was clear. But with that, what was I saying?
No, basically, like,
everybody's better with
the different
securely attached.
person. Everyone's better with securely attached, but oftentimes, and I don't know if this is just something I read, the avoidant and it's like the polar opposites kind of attract each other, right?
Yeah.
Which seems like it would be dangerous fireworks to me, but
yeah.
Well,
it's called
every toxic relationship you've ever.
That's called a situationship. I love him. She's annoying. Or vice versa. I love her. He's annoying.
Right. Yeah. No. That. Oh my God. It's so crazy when you see that.
Because I read that too. Because like the thing is, it's whatever stimulates your attachment style is what you're drawn to.
Right.
Right. An avoidant person. I don't want to. This is what your expertise is. But I just read.
I'll fill in. Go ahead.
No. So what I read was someone who's highly anxious. Their anxious, I guess, nervous system is fueled by an avoidant person, and that's stimulating.
Right.
Right. And then someone who's avoidant, their avoidant, subconscious is fueled by someone who's anxious because it justifies their reason for being avoidant.
Right.
Because someone's pressing on them. Right. So that sometimes gets mistaken for love or mistaken for some type of
understanding. Or,
I won't even call it understanding. It's more like it's
exciting. It's different.
Yeah, it's a level of excitement, right?
Well, the others, in addition to what you just said, because everything you just said is accurate, your subconscious seeks the familiar.
Yep.
So if as a child you are used to that inconsistent love, right, you would naturally be drawn to an avoidant. Right. Okay. Where they're in and then they pull away and then they come in and then they pull away. Right. It creates that familiar feeling of love. Right. You learned as a child that love is inconsistent, and an avoidant presents that to you. And so it feels like love. And on the other side of it, with the avoidant person really appreciates the anxious person's capacity to be kind of like, they really want love underneath that exterior, right? Of like, oh, I don't need anybody. They really want love just like everybody else, right? Because it's a natural human desire. And so they're like kind of fall in love with that capacity in the anxious person, but then they're confronted by it. As well, they're like, it's too much. I like it, but whoa, it's too much. I can't handle it, because literally their nervous system goes into freeze mode. They cannot handle the overwhelm of the anxious person, even though they seek it and they want it. And so, hence, and then you get into relationship as an adult, and the anxious person needs attention, needs validation, needs to be in touch, and the avoidant person, all they need is space. They don't want to be needed. They don't want to be like put upon, and they have completely opposite needs, right? Like opposite needs and opposite coping mechanisms, So it's just like this toxic
like an explosion.
Of
it's
like
really
misunderstanding.
Like
you're like just missing each other all the time,
So what's your advice to people who are in relationships or who are, and have a desire to be in a relationship? What's your advice to them in as far as like what they should know about themselves and other people before they enter those relationships, in the context of personality types, attachment styles, and how all that plays? How much of that should come into play before people enter those relationships?
I think really it's kind of hard to just say one thing, right? Ultimately, you have to know yourself the most. You have to understand yourself the most. You have to understand what you can and can't put up with. And a lot of times how you get there is by dating. And a lot of times people struggle with dating because it gets them hurt, and they don't want to be hurt. And so then like, it's this whole, and then they never learn really about themselves because they're just focused on externally what's happening. So that brings you again, brings us back to, again, like, that's why you kind of need to know yourself. You got to kind of clear out the cobwebs, deal with the trauma, know your attachment style. Love languages are important. And like, they're a good thing to know too, but to me, they're like a very superficial, and quite frankly, they're not psychologically tested either. They're a good thing to understand, but they're not going to get deep into what's going to make your relationship stick or not stick.
So that's interesting that you'd say that. I would have thought that you'd felt differently about that. Is it because they're tied more to like acute needs, would you say, or
it's a superficial thing, and they're not journal reviewed. It's not like a scientific thing, whereas attachment styles, like it's a psychological test that's been done over and over and over again. Like there's hundreds of, the journal peer-reviewed articles about this topic. It's like a real thing. Everybody's got an attachment style. We're all born. The second you're born, you attach, or don't attach. And yeah, it's a real thing.
So how does one go about learning about themselves scientifically rather than the superficial? Like,
I think what Jeff's trying to ask is, what do you recommend people do? Like obviously you have a test out there. There's other things. Like where would you point people? In what direction?
Yeah, I mean, I will, for me, the attachment style conversation really opened things up for me, but there's tons of ways to learn. And quite honestly, these days, I would say get a coach, not because I
Flora.
am one necessarily. Not only because I am one, but I really feel like dating has turned into a skill, and falling in love, but also keeping a hold of yourself and your inner being is really hard to do. It's not something that is natural or easy for us. We've been taught that you fall in love, you stay together with somebody forever, and you deal with the good and the bad, and and you never leave. And people get stuck in these like horrible relationships, and they completely lose themselves, and they don't even know who they are anymore.
So what's confusing to me is with what you're saying right now, right? Is you're saying people should get more familiar with themselves, get to know their attachment styles, so that way they know how to better cope with other people and relate to other people based on what they know about themselves and the people that they're with, right? But how do you explain the fact that, I kind of know the answer to this question, but I want to know if it plays into this at all. How do you explain the fact that relationships lasted a lot longer in earlier times, if you will, right? Earlier / modern times of people marrying or being in courtship, when the knowledge of attachment styles wasn't really understood until recent?
Fear and necessity.
Say that again.
Fear and necessity.
What does that mean?
That means that, back in the day, women couldn't get a job, women couldn't own property, women couldn't, I don't know, they had no rights.
There were less options.
Yeah. And so you had to stay. You didn't have a choice to stay. You were getting beaten to a pulp and you had to stay, kind of thing. You had kids, and how are they going to get taken care of if you left? So there were no options at all, and you had to stay. And now we're moving into a very independent, structured society almost, where you can completely live on your own, man or woman, forever. You don't need to have kids. You don't need to necessarily relate to other people. Not that I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying that that's kind of, that's kind of a reality. And the more you get to know yourself now, the more you can have a community or friends and relationships that are healthy and that actually serve you, not functionally, but internally.
Right. What's wild about that is, like, so many people idolize the past and say, oh, I want a relationship like my grandparents where they were together for 50 years, right? But they don't look at the nuances of, like, they pretty much didn't really have a choice, right, in the matter, in terms of, like, socially or even just economically, right? You had to stay together. Now, when you're given a choice, we have to go through this jump roping of personalities to understand, okay, I don't have to be with you anymore. Now I need to find a reason and a way to maintain a relationship when all those necessities aren't pressuring me anymore.
Right, but and that you're 100% right. It plays more into choice, right? Like now, I would hope and I would think that the culture that we're currently living in, the climate, in terms of making sure that your own personal health is taken care of and thinking about the individual more, it would lead to stronger and more healthy relationships in the future, right? Because if you're actually making a choice to be with these people, right, or this person, whatever per se, and you've also done the work to really understand yourself, which would likely mean that you're going to take the time to really get to know them, I think that would breed a better just relationship overall.
I don't
maybe
agree.
I'm wrong, but
I don't agree fully. And Flora, tell me how you feel about this, right? I think the more choice you are given as a person, right, within your society or your environment, the harder it's going to be for you to justify staying with someone long term, because there's no need, there's no intrinsic need.
That's assuming you don't know who you are and what you want.
Even if you know who you are and what you want, that might not necessarily make you the most compatible with the average person, because your needs are probably more complex, unique to you, versus trying to have a very basic, I need economic security, I need, a womb to breed children, very simple. That can be filled by a multitude of people.
Got it.
Now, attachment style, love languages.
So do you think that limits on choice are like better for relationship?
It's not about better or worse. It's about outcome. When you limit choice, the outcome is people stay together. Is it healthy? Not necessarily, but they stay together because you're limiting the choice of wondering what else is there, as well as wondering what else is good for you, right? Versus when you are in an environment like this, Flora, you can chime in.
Yeah, I would love to hear what you think of that.
When you're in a situation where all your needs are taken care of by self, all your physiological, social, economic needs are met with self. Now you're trying to fill an emotional need that you're still trying to figure out, and that takes a lifetime to understand. How does one even begin to blend with someone else when they are in constant state of discovery of self, regardless how many books you read, regardless of how much therapy you've had?
I see what you're saying. That's an interesting.
Well, so I think that this is really interesting because this is something that's come up for me in conversations lately, and it's come up via the conversation of like polyamory, right? So I don't know if you guys are. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with Aubrey Marcus. Do you know who he is? He's like a famous podcaster. He's a famous podcaster. He does a lot of self-development stuff. I don't really listen to his podcast, but he's a men's coach, and he lived the poly lifestyle for a very long time. And recently he got married and is in a monogamous relationship.
Okay.
And the person who was interviewing him had the same experience, lived the poly lifestyle, got into a monogamous relationship. Then there's another like personal friend that I have that lived the poly lifestyle, got into a monogamous, is married now in a monogamous relationship.
Okay.
And have you guys ever read the book, The Alchemist?
Yes, multiple times. 3 times.
Such a good book, right? So you know how he starts off and then ends up in exactly the same place, just to find the thing he was searching for the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So you're going with this, Flora, and I love it.
Somebody want to fill me in? Hi, my name is Jeff.
Essentially, you need options. You need to have an unlimited amount of choice to figure out exactly what you want. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay,
like,
so what?
So you're the way you're thinking, and tell me if I'm wrong. The way that it sounds like you're thinking is that when you have unlimited choice, you're never going to be able to really say, okay, this is what I want, because there's always going to be something else.
No, it's not about. I'm not using the word never. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, it makes it more difficult right?
But the argument is that it doesn't.
No.
Go ahead. Let Flora finish. I think she's going to tie it up. Sorry for cutting you off, Flora.
It's okay. You need to get back there is the point. And the point is we all want love. Okay. Like whether you're going to say it out loud, whether you believe like consciously that that's what we're all seeking. We all want love. We all want acceptance. We all want to be seen and we all want to be heard, no matter how much you resist that reality. Okay. And sometimes you go on a journey in life to figure out how to get there, you know? And sometimes you need to explore the options to figure out how to get there. Right. But essentially we all come back to just needing to be loved, seen, and heard. Basic things. That's it. Right. You know? And that's all we're all really seeking. So whatever path you take to get there is your own path you take to get there, but you're just going to come back to the same place, you know, at the end of it. So you can 25 girls a day to get there. Or
25 girls a day? I want to know which pill that is.
That'd be quite a feat.
College. That's not. All right. On that note, Flora, this conversation it's
amazing. Oh, it always is though. Speaking to you because you're just on top of it. Like literally, like I feel like you don't really give people advice based on your emotions and your feeling. You give people advice on a healthy mixture of your feeling and your thought, but really like a lot of just like facts, right? I really appreciate you all the time. Anytime we get you on.
This is a thoroughly enjoyable conversation, and
always, guys. You guys are great too.
Yeah, we're all right. We're all right. Who are we? I don't know.
I love you guys.
We love you. Do you have any anything you want to? Did you have a?
No, you answered everything that I had for now.
Do you have anything you want to shout out in terms of any projects you're working on that you want to share with the audience, or?
Sure. I am going to be running a group in September at this point because it's summertime, right? And we're all going to go take a break for August. But I'm going to live the European lifestyle and take August off.
Wait, tell the audience where you're headed. Where are you headed?
I'm headed to Costa Rica.
Nice.
For how long?
For 3 weeks.
Damn.
Love it.
Well, you're going solo?
Without my kids, by the way.
So you're going solo? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Note to self.
Got to introspect a little bit, to get a little introspective.
All right. We dropped that one in there.
I love that.
All right. So
what are you working on?
So I'll be running my group again, Redo Love, the program. The name of my brand is Redo Love, by the way. And you can find that information on www.redo.love. And I'm on Instagram at redo.love as well.
Right on.
Awesome.
Mike, how do they find you?
Same. I'm in the same place, guys. You can find me on any social media platform at Michaelangelo.Garland. And feel free to connect with the show too through at Introspect Room.
It's at the Introspect.
At the Introspect Room. At Introspect Room on Twitter.
Oh, right on. My name is Jeff Damisse. You guys can find me at j.damisse, j.damisse for IG, j_DAMISSE for Twitter. And at the Introspect Room for everything. This was a great conversation.
It was. Yeah. And you can always find us on Clubhouse, right?
Find us on Clubhouse, acting a fool. I do host a room every Wednesday night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We have very invigorating conversations where we make it interactive. In the future, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. I'm not going to reveal what I'm planning.
God forbid you should reveal.
You don't need to know or anything. Just
we'll
get there.
We'll get there. This was a great conversation, Flora. Listen, we want to have you back.
Same.
Because I feel like there needs to be part twos or new. We can dig into so many things because I've had conversations with you before, and I think we can really dig into this a little bit further.
For sure. I'd love it.
All right.
Yeah,
Love it.
We want updates too on the trip,
Yes.
the new relationship.
She's gonna come back.
You
like,
know,
new hair
how your
color.
7-year-old and your 12-year-old are developing their attachment styles, all of that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah. Awesome, guys. Yes, always. I always enjoy talking to you, and I'd love to come back.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, until next time.
Peace.
Peace out. Bye.